You know, it's almost like your birthday with a package from China, so let's go. But we're going to take a close look at it later. The Xbox controller Elite Edition has some magnetic parts that you can remove, and that is also implemented in this PlayStation 4 controller. And the first impression, this thing is quite heavy, and the triggers that you need to put on the back look very nice. And yep, this is a combination of rubber, plastic and metal. And I mean with rubber because the controller has this rubber coating. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it's not like this very thick coating, so I'm hoping in the future this will not get this sticky feeling to it. But overall, when it comes to the upgrades, there is not a lot of things that we can change out. The only thing that we can change out is the D-pad. At the bottom we're going to get the manual. I recommend just read it, because there is a lot of stuff that you need to know. No, not in this language. Here's the English on the other side. And this explains how you need to connect it. I'll show you, but also there are micros. But what I understand is that the back buttons, the 4 of them, have been mapped to the front buttons, the square, triangle, circle and the cross. And we need to connect with this very nice cloth cable. Okay, so let's get it out. So the first impression, this thing feels quite heavy, like a beast. And it has some similarities of an Xbox controller. At the back we're going to find some extra buttons. I'll explain to you later. It does have this rubber coating, but what I'm saying, it's different. Okay, so what you can do is having the analog stick removed. That's the only thing, because there are no spare analog buttons or other options so far I know you can buy. Will be cool, so you can upgrade them fairly easy. Okay, next up we can change out the D-pad. It's very nice mechanic. It still has some movement between it when you even putting it on. And like with the Xbox Elite controller, we're going to get this option too. Not a big fan of it, to be honest, but that's more like a personal thing. But also this one feels very nice. And then we're going to get the shoulder buttons and the trigger buttons. And at the back we're going to get the option to add ourselves these 4 trigger buttons. Okay, so let's add the trigger buttons at the back. They're fairly easy and they fit very well. Okay, let's put the other side in. And that's the only thing that you need to do. They work very easy. When you're holding it, you need to be careful. You need to get used to it because you can touch them fairly easy. There's still some room before you're going to click it, so you don't need to be afraid that you're accidentally going to click on it. Okay, but I'm going to change out this one because I personally love to have a normal D-pad. Okay, so next up, the controller. The original, 280 grams. That's the weight of the original controller. And this Beefcake Elite controller weighs in total 283 grams. So you can see there's a significant difference with the controllers. Personally, it's not too heavy. Still, you can feel it when you're holding it in your hands. But yeah, that's what you're going to get with Pro and Elite controllers. These things are quite beefy, have a lot of metal parts in it. Okay, so the first thing I noticed, when you're looking at the shell of the PlayStation 4 controller, this thing doesn't really look like a PlayStation 4 controller. It has more like this own shell to it. And this is a bad thing, not at all. This thing also comes completely made of plastic, the original one, and this has this rubber coating and even have some nice grips at the back. So that part, I do like it. So when holding it, I must say it doesn't feel bad at all. It doesn't feel like a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox controller. It has this PlayStation 3 feel to it. And the PlayStation 4 controller, it feels also smaller. So the Elite is absolutely more like a beefy controller. Okay, so next up, you can just hear that it has a completely different kind of analog sticks. The analog sticks, they feel completely different. And not in a bad way. They have less resistance. The travel of the home button is different. And of course the D-pad is completely different. Okay, so when you're looking at both of the shells, you can see from the side that the Elite is more bulky. So if you like tiny hands, that's going to be an issue, or it can be less comfortable. But then overall, I'm very pleased with it, how it feels, and later on we're going to see how it plays. So what I do like about it, that they don't rip off the PlayStation 4 controller and just make something out of it. Fun fact is the shoulder buttons, this look like an Xbox Elite controller. So, or an Xbox One X controller, depends how you want to say it. So in the end they rip something off. But again, it's something completely different because the PlayStation 4, the feeling of the shoulder button is completely different because it's a different controller. The travel, they were also going to get a difference. the travel of the PlayStation 4 is more like a flat button, but the travel is also shorter. So that's something you need to take consideration, something I noticed, but I don't mind because I got used to it very quickly. At the back we're going to get the 4 triggers. They are automatically mapped to the buttons at the front. And for the people wondering, no, you cannot switch it out, because when you do that, this happens. So that is not going to work. Like the manual says, you need to use this cable. I was using a different cable somehow, I didn't want to connect, so I'm using this one. And it looks like a very nice quality cable. So plug it in, press the home button, and it will automatically connect to your PlayStation 4 and register like a controller. So we can use it with a wire and wireless, because this controller is wireless. But also take consideration, you have a wired version. And here you can see it works wirelessly. I charge it up, it works like a charm when it comes to wireless connection. Yeah. Alrighty guys, so the first game I wanted to play is Wipeout. And I messed it up with the button mapping, but I just wanted to show you that I can use the front buttons, but also can use the back buttons. Quite interesting, so it's maybe not intended to do this with racing games like Wipeout, but I'm just gonna be honest, my friends, I am not a big shooting fan on game consoles, so I don't own a lot of those games. I mostly have like racing games, but I still wanted to see how this controller plays. So the first thing I'm noticing is that the analog stick, the travel is absolutely the same, everything is the same, only the spring that's beneath it is like say having less tension, and I find it very comfortable. So if you're like let's say an extreme gamer when it comes to shooters, you shall need to use this controller for a long time to get used to it. Alright, so next up we're going to take a close look at Gran Turismo, a different racing game. And yeah, again, like I'm noticing that the analog stick is just as responsive like the original one, so don't notice any hiccups or problems here. Okay, so the next game that we're going to play is Marvel Lego, and the reason why, because of the free roaming, so we need to use the joystick in 360 degrees, and we have like a lot of cool things we can do with. Also the vibration function I'm noticing is like very good. I've checked it out with different cheap controllers or knockoff controllers, and you notice always like a slightly big difference or a minor difference, but this time it feels exactly like an original one, and it's got a very nice rumble function. Also the controllers seem to be working fine, the shortcuts at the back work very well, so with all the action keys, but of course not really necessary for a game like this. And when it comes to shooting games, Wild Guns is one of my favorite shooting games. Yep, old school 2-dimensional retro games. That is what I love, that's the shooting games I play. But again, the game controller works just fine here.